Ecclesiastes chapter 5. We'll begin reading in verse 1. We'll go ahead and read the text. And we'll start teaching. It says, "Keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of God, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools. For they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with thy mouth, and let not thine heart be hasty to utter anything before God. For God is in heaven, and thou upon earth. Therefore let thy words be few. For a dream cometh through the multitude of business, and a fool's voice is known by multitude of words. When thou vowest a vow unto God, defer not to pay him, for he hath no pleasure in fools. Pay that which thou hast vowed. Better is it that thou shouldest not vow, than that thou shouldest vow and not pay. Suffer not thy mouth to cause thy flesh to sin. Neither say thou before the angel that it was an error. Wherefore should God be angry at thy voice, and destroy the work of thine hands? For in the multitude of dreams and many words there are also divers vanities, but fear thou God." I want to talk with you today, and I'm going to preach later on, like I said, on a fool in the house of God. A fool in the house of God. But right this moment, again, I'm going to give you the introduction to the message. First of all, if you turn back over to Ecclesiastes chapter 1. Ecclesiastes chapter 1. In verse 1, it tells us who the writer is of Ecclesiastes. It says in verse 1, "The words of the preacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem," which is Solomon. This is Solomon who is writing this. He is the preacher. Not only was he a king, not only was he the son of David, but the word Ecclesiastes means preacher. It means preacher, and that's what Solomon was. He was a preacher. Now, was he the best preacher? I don't know. But I know he was awful wise, and maybe some of that from some of his mistakes. I know from some of my own mistakes I've become wiser. And sometimes, sad to say, that's how we as Christians learn things. We sometimes are hard-headed and hard-hearted sometimes, and we have to learn things the hard way. But here, Solomon is the writer, and he is the preacher, and it tells us that. I want to go over several words that is found throughout the book of Ecclesiastes, and these words gives us a clue as to what Solomon is trying to get across here in the book of Ecclesiastes. If you never read it, you might get confused with what's going on here, or what is happening, or what are they trying to say here. Before I started studying it a long time ago, I was a little confused, and sometimes if you don't know the whole gist of the book and what a writer is trying to say, then you might get confused about what they're trying to say. But hopefully after today you'll have a better grasp of the book of Ecclesiastes. We certainly can't cover everything in it. I'm not going to try to. It'll be a good book to study, to read. And like I said, though, that hopefully after Sunday school and church this morning, that you'll have a better understanding of the whole book of Ecclesiastes. We're going to, in the service, kind of stay in chapter 5 pretty much, but I think you'll get a better grasp of the whole book. So if you go back and read the whole thing, you'll better understand it. But anyway, so words that are frequently found in the book of Ecclesiastes, I believe it's important to look at these words again because they show us what the writer is trying to say. And as you use a word over and over and over, it emphasizes something. In a lot of my writing that I write, you'll constantly hear me use certain words. It's because I emphasize those things, like the King James Bible. Anybody who reads anything of mine, you know, well, that guy, he certainly believes the King James Bible. He uses the word heretic a lot. He uses the word apostate and so forth. So therefore, someone reading that to me would pick up on the fact that he don't have a problem calling people a heretic or an apostate, or he certainly believes the King James Bible, or he uses the word perversion a lot. So that would be in my own writing. But here in Solomon's writing, that's certainly inspired of God, he uses the word vanity or vanities. It appears 37 times in this book. Just a small book. appears 37 times. Now, the word vanity, over the years past, I've had a hard time understanding really what vanity means. I've always heard it means empty, and it certainly doesn't mean empty, but I didn't quite understand it. But a little bit more than just empty, it also means a vapor, and that is that which leaves quickly, leaving nothing and never satisfying. In fact, if you look at verse 2 in chapter 1, this is one of the key verses in the book. It says, "Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher." Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Now in that one verse, he uses that word 5 times. Boy, that's a lot of times to use that word in one verse. But he says everything is vanity. Everything. He said everything is like a vapor. It leaves quickly, leaving nothing behind, and never satisfying. No matter the difference what it is. Everything. Everything. And vanity also is the way I understand it. It is when one tries to satisfy their desires with substance, with things that don't satisfy. Such as, and we see this all the time, we saw a bunch of it at the fair. People trying to satisfy their desires with the dance, their music, the way they act, the way they dress, their immodesty and so forth. Certainly, I'm sure people last night, some people in this world, they probably went somewhere and got a drink. I bet you somebody was in a bar last night trying to satisfy their desires. Let's try to satisfy that void that God puts inside of us with a substance that can't really satisfy. It's a vapor. It's a vanity. Liquor is a vanity. It's a substance that quickly disappears. It's only there for a short time, and it leaves nothing behind, and it never satisfies. That's what a vanity is. It's trying to fulfill your desire inside you, your God-given void, with substances of this world. And it could be good things too. It could be nature. It could be nature. I love nature, but you know what? Nature can't satisfy my desire. Nature can't do it. It could be relaxing, taking it easy, rocking on the front porch too. That can't satisfy you. Can't do it. You can help your neighbor and bake cakes and be a wonderful person and help people, but you know what? That can't do it. That can't satisfy. Those are vanities. Working hard and working from the time you was a small child to whenever till you die, and working hard and being honest, and those things are vanities. If you read through the book of Ecclesiastes, it's all labor is vanity. All labor. Even study. Now I like to study. I like to read books. You know what he says? That's vanity. Vanity. Everything's vanity. Going to work is vanity. Studying is vanity. Becoming wiser is vanity. Trying to accumulate wealth is vanity. You say, boy, what am I supposed to be doing? Well, we're going to find out today. What is it saying then? Everything you do is vanity. A bunch of sleep is vanity. A bunch of work is vanity. Everything is vanity. All is vanity. Well, we're going to find out. I'm not going to give you the key right now, but we're going to just keep on studying some words. Make you, hopefully you understand that word, because that's the key. That's the key to understanding this book, is understanding what vanity is. Another one of the key phrases that appears 29 times in this book is under the sun. Look at verse 3 of chapter 1. It says, "What profit hath a man of all his labor, which he taketh under the sun?" What's the profit? What benefit is there if you work all your life, if you work all your days under the sun? Now that phrase, under the sun, is basically Solomon saying this is from a human stand of view. And you need to realize that Solomon is writing certainly from a human point of view. That's what it means. From a human point of view, under the sun, God is above. We are under the sun. Certainly God is everywhere. We know that. But Solomon is saying, as far as a human's point of view, what profit hath the man of all his labor, which he taketh under the sun? Certainly we know that Solomon wrote by inspiration of God. It tells us that in 2 Timothy. And he wrote down and penned exactly what God wanted to give us. It was inspired. God told him to write the words of the preacher. And Solomon wrote down the words of the preacher. He said to write down the son of David. And he wrote down the son of David, and so on, all the way through the end of the book. He wrote down exactly what God told him to do. And so we have it, but yet Solomon is also saying this is from a human point of view, so to speak, but we also have to keep this in mind. So when you're reading this, until you get to the key verses, until you get to the conclusion of the matter, until you get to the end of the book, then you say, okay, now we see. Now we see. Yeah, this is from a human point of view. But there's a key to it. Another word that it appears 10 times in the book is the word prophet. In fact, in that same verse we just read, verse 3, what profit hath the man? What is the benefit? What's his gain? This word prophet only appears here in the Old Testament. This word is not found anywhere else. That's kind of odd, isn't it? The word prophet is not found anywhere else in the whole Old Testament except for in this one book, and it appears 10 times in this one book. That's kind of odd, is it not? Would you say that's coincidence? By luck? No. I think God designed it that way. Profit is that which is left over. That means surplus or gain. Mr. Jack would understand this, owning the business. Hopefully Hannah will have some profit in her new Avon business. That's what you want. You want a little profit. You want a little gain. When I was in locksmith business, I'd make X amount of dollars. It's called gross. It was gross sometimes. But eventually, the gross became better. But as you have something gross, then you net. That's your profit. That's your profit. That's what you have after you pay your taxes. And then after that, you ain't got much. But anyway, after the government rips you off and steals your money so they can murder babies all over this world and get politicians fat and dishonest, then you got what you call a profit left over. You got the net. And so after you pay your bills, and in my business, you know, I had to go out and buy locks and keys and machinery and so forth. Mr. Jack goes and buys I guess he's going to probably buy some lumber this coming week sometime, and probably some nails and stuff like that. Well, that's going to be part of the expense of doing a job. And then whatever's left over will be profit. And so that's what Solomon is saying here, is that which is left over, surplus. What is the profit? What's left over after all a man's work under the sun if he works his whole life? Now, Mr. Jack's been working a long time. He probably, hope he's not over there thinking, what he put down me working hard? No, I'm not putting down working hard. But we just go keep going and get a little bit further. And we all for people working hard, and we should work hard. But Solomon said, what is the profit? What's left over after I work from day to day? I get up, I work, I go, and then I come home, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and then I go up and I do it again. What's the profit? Well, another word, the word labor, fits in good with the word profit, also found in that same verse. In verse 3 again, what profit hath the man of all his labor, which he taketh under the sun? The word labor, or some form of it, appears 46 times. 46 times in this book. 46 times. That's an awful lot of times for just 12 chapters. I don't know what that is, but that's at least 10 times per chapter or more. Well, no, it's not that many. But anyway, it's a good many times. That's what it is. It's a good many times. So it's about almost 4 times, something like that. So anyway, what the word means is what I looked up in the Webster's 1828 dictionary. I'm just going to read it. It says, labor means to toil to the point of exhaustion and yet experience little or no fulfillment in your work. Now, that's what it says. Not my definition. That was what it says. It means to labor, means to toil to the point of exhaustion. That means, man, I just got to say, I think, great. I was working with Mr. Jack, and I was digging in footers.